So it happened, I quit. After being a Turo host for going on 8 years and creating content here on YouTube for 5 years, I'm done. And no, not with Turo or YouTube, but with my 9 to 5 job. I know, a little bit clickbaity, but every YouTuber gets their one I quit video, and this one is mine. Ever since I started YouTube, I've been beating the drum of how important it is to have a diversified income and how I strongly believe that if you can, I encourage you to keep your 9 to 5 job for as long as physically possible. I started my Turo fleet, grew this YouTube channel, and started all of my other projects while also working for someone else. I spent most of my corporate career working at a consulting firm, but I ended up switching jobs last year, where I've been for the last 12 months. But I recently quit that job, and for the first time in many years, I am 100% self-employed. And so in this video, I want to break down why I stayed at my 9 to 5 for so long, ultimately why I've made the decision to quit, and what I'm going to be doing now. Now, I've had a bit of an unconventional career. I dropped out of college, and the jobs that I have had that are more corporate or traditional are ones that I never really sought out, meaning they aren't ones that I applied for. You see, I started my career owning a franchise that I bought in my very early 20s that I purchased with money that I made in the stock market in high school. Long story short, I bought American Airlines stock before they went bankrupt at the penny stock levels, and the rest was sort of history. And while my franchise did close many years ago, I was able to make a connection through that ownership of the owner of a consulting firm who ended up hiring me for his firm. This was in my early to mid 20s, and at the time, I started a position at that company working as a one-off basis, but then I ended up working my way up to basically being his right-hand person. This job was great, I learned a lot, and it paid well, especially given the amount of flexibility. My boss at the time knew all about every project and entrepreneurial goal that I had outside of my job with him, so there was a lot of mutual respect to my schedule and bandwidth. But after feeling as though I had hit my cap and kind of ceiling with that company, and I was just overall feeling a bit bored and dissatisfied, I decided that it was time to leave. And I ended up immediately finding a job with a different company through a friend of mine who knew someone looking to hire someone for her company with my exact skill sets. I was hired on the spot, and the job was significantly higher paying, seemed like it had a ton of upward growth, and it was great. But looking back in hindsight, it is borderline comical because almost to the day of me taking this new job was the start of some of the hardest 12 months of my entire adult life. In the last 12 months, I bought my first out-of-state rental property, hired a salaried employee for my company, grew my Turo fleet and this YouTube channel, and in the midst of all of this, I also do try to have a personal life, which has had its ups and downs over the last 12 months as well. When I first took this job, I almost immediately had an extremely hard time adjusting to the new schedule. And while I initially blamed this very difficult adjustment on the fact that I just had so much going on, and I kept telling myself that once we hired an employee for my own company, things would settle down, then I got super sick in the month of July and August with COVID and bronchitis, and I told myself once I felt better, I would be able to get into a work groove. But once I felt better, there was another hurdle after another after another. And I kept telling myself that once I got over that next hurdle, I would be able to settle into my new schedule and my new position, and everything would be okay. And well, before you know it, it's been a year later, and I was just never able to get there. I never got into my groove. In fact, I would argue that I fell out of it more than ever. Now, I'm gonna save you all the nitty-gritty details of why this job just never seemed to be the right fit. One, because my former boss knows I have this YouTube channel, and I'm not going to publicly say anything that could be perceived as negative. But I will say this, whenever I quit my longtime consulting job back in 2024, one of the main reasons why I did this was because I started to not look forward to Mondays. And I caught myself time after time on Sunday night dreading the next day of my morning meetings and just feeling overall anxious about the upcoming week. And I noticed a few months ago this exact same thing happening with this new position, but to a more extreme degree. And not only on Sundays, but by Saturday nights, I was already dreading the upcoming Monday, and I just found myself waiting for the week to be over. But I also found myself loving federal holidays like Memorial Day and weekends where I could work on my own projects without interruption from my 9 to 5, and I would dread when 9 a.m. Monday would come up and wouldn't really feel at ease until 5 p.m. Friday. Now, I do want to note that whenever I took this position, I was very transparent with the fact that I had other projects and other businesses. So this wasn't an instance where there wasn't clear communication or people were misled. I do just want to offer that as a bit of a caveat because I could see why maybe people watching this video may think that. So this is why I quit. At the end of the day, I started to feel like this job was costing me my mental health. There was an opportunity cost that came with that because it would seep into all aspects of my life, and I knew that that needed to change. But let's talk about why I stayed at this job for so long, despite the fact that I really didn't need the money, and what I have planned next. So, first is why I stayed. Now, I'm going to be 100% honest with you guys. Really, the only reason why I stayed at this job for as long as I did was because of the money. Over the last few years, my husband HP and I have been able to do many of the things that we want to do simply because of the money that we make. We've been able to buy rental properties, expand our fleets, take risks into new businesses and projects, many of which we've never even talked about on this channel, and we've been able to save and invest large portions of our income, all because most of the last 5 years, we've been living almost exclusively off my income and investing everything else from our business. And that's not even necessarily reinvesting into that business. We've taken money that we've made from our Turo fleet or from this YouTube channel and purchased other things or invested into other projects, which has been amazing. Things like buying rental properties, buying more Turo cars, buying personal vehicles, or even putting money aside to buy our dream house later on down the line. And while we can, of course, do all of this with the income that we make from our business, having that extra income from my day job was a lot, and it meant that there was a lot of money getting invested that sort of was setting us up for long-term wealth building. Now, having a 9 to 5 wasn't always a money thing for me. For a long time, I did stay in this position because it was a good way for me to connect with other people, to get out of my comfort zone, and to learn. And interestingly enough, one of the businesses that HP, my employee Todd, and I are currently working on has a lot of aspects of a previous role that I had at my consulting firm. And so there has been a big ROI from the experience I gained at my previous positions as well. But when push comes to shove, the real reason why I stayed at a job that I really wasn't fully happy at for a long time comes down to the money. I had mentioned earlier that I used to own a franchise in my early 20s, and while that business did close many years ago, long before I started this YouTube channel, the effects of that business sending me into near bankruptcy has left a lifelong scar on my brain. And I think it has given me a bit of a scarcity mindset whenever it comes to having money. And even today, I go through spouts where I think that we're on the brink of running out of cash, even when we're very clearly not. And I think that this past experience of almost going bankrupt has just made it very, very difficult to let go of something that was almost guaranteed income. And so that's why I stayed. But now what I'm going to be doing with my extra time and extra bandwidth. And truthfully, it's going to kind of be more of the same. We just recently got a shop for our Turo fleet, and we are transitioning from working out of our home to working out of our shop, which is a transition I am very, very excited about. And the transition of working exclusively from home to having an office to go to will be good for my mental health and productivity. Also, for the first time in many years, I won't be glued to my desk from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m., which will give me more flexibility to help Todd and HP with Turo cars, which will free all of us up for more projects we want to pursue as a company. I want to improve my content here on this channel, and I also want to start posting on TikTok more, something I used to do and had a lot of success with, but stopped last August when life just got too overwhelming. And of course, buying more cars and pursuing other projects, which sort of brings me to my biggest change. For the last year, HP and I have been working on building a business quietly in the background. This is a business that is in the automotive space, but isn't Turo or car sharing related. For a long time, this has just been a side project, something that we had both been working at whenever we had time. But as a company, being Todd, HP, and myself, we've decided that if we want to see this project kind of go to the next level, we have to have someone steering the ship, which is really going to be the role that I jump into head first. Over the last year, we've been working to prove that this business model has legs, that it is a viable business model, and I think we've done that. But now it's a matter of scaling up, which will be something that I will be taking on from here on out. This is something that I definitely plan on talking about here on this channel, but I'm just not ready to publicly talk about it quite yet. We wanted to build this business outside of the prying eyes of social media, and we really wanted to create a proof of concept. And now that I feel as though we have done that, there will be a more in-depth video coming soon. The decision to leave my 9 to 5 has not been a decision that I've taken lightly. In fact, I can't even count the number of times I've asked my husband, sisters, or dad their opinion on when I should quit or if I should quit my job. In fact, they're probably happy that I finally done it just so I can shut up about it. And over the years, I frequently asked myself the question, is having a 9 to 5 creating an opportunity cost that makes it no longer worth it? Meaning, am I losing more money by working a 9 to 5 and spending less time on my own projects? And truthfully, for a very long time, I was adamant that the answer was no. And I think that was true. But I think over the last 6 months, the answer has changed, and I can feel myself not showing up for my own projects in the way in which I need to, which means that for the first time since documenting my entrepreneurial journey here on YouTube, the answer of is having a 9 to 5 job cost me money my own company is actually yes. And that's ultimately why I decided to call it quits. There really isn't much more to say from here, and newer watchers or maybe casual watchers of this channel may not have even realized that I had a 9 to 5, because it wasn't something that I talked about really frequently unless I was making an income video or a Turo specific video about diversification. But I did feel an obligation to make an update because this has been a topic that I've talked about frequently enough that it's sort of almost become a part of my brand. And while it will take a long time to figure out whether or not this move was worth it and what type of return I get from making this move, I will probably make an update video in about a year giving you my thoughts. Like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it, so make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.